JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. This week, we're looking back at the Hot Top 10 from March 22nd, 2019, and I'm recording this on September 20th, 2019. I almost forgot what the day was. As always, I give the dates just so you know when this information is most relevant. This week's list has a book from last week, but really not a lot of real value on this week's list. This, I'd have to say, is, in my opinion, one of the worst lists we've had recently. Typically, you have a couple books you can really count on. Not so much here, but we'll get into the books, see what you think, and without further ado, let's start with number 10. Number 10 is our repeat from last week. This is Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Number 42, the Marcos Martin 1 in 25 variant. And this was second week after release, and this cover was hard to find and super hot. It was $70 in last week's list that we talked about. It was going for $70 for 1 in 25, which is huge. By this week, it had jumped up to $90 to $100, which is just a big number for 1 in 25. Well, as we talked about last week, now this book is going for $15. Although those are the only sales, and there's not many because for the most part, they're still asking $60 plus for this book for raw copies. But the only couple of sales here recently have both been for $15. So this is a cover that still not a lot of them out there. I think there's only 4 currently listed on eBay, but just not really a market for, so unless somebody prices it very lowly, or for like 10 to 15 bucks, people are just aren't buying it. And number 9 on our list is Naomi, number 3. And this is when the Naomi buzz really got going. Like, I remember number 1 came out, nobody was really talking about it. Number 2, by the time number 3 came out, there was starting to be some buzz that DC had big plans for Naomi. And it really started with this book. And they were talking about that their origin was going to be in here somewhere and some other stuff. Well, this one, it was either going to be this one or 4. And this one right out of the gate was going for $10 to $15 week of release. And these were, I think these early ones were a little bit low print, but not too low. And just, as you'll see probably in the coming weeks, there was a lot of hype about Naomi back in the spring. But now this book is back down to like $5 to $10. Occasionally somebody pays $15 because that's mostly what they're asking for it. But it's really a cover to $10 book. 9.8 have been going for $30 to $40 shipped. So that tells you that there's really not a lot of value in this one. And a bunch of people got them slabbed along with all those early Naomi books. So I think eventually, they're finally bringing her into the Superman comics. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of buzz for Naomi. But there's nothing really special about number 3. So my guess is this one's not going to be one that's really going to have any long-term value. And number 8 on the list is Meet the Scrolls, number 2, the Raza 1 in 25 variant. And this was just a low order book, a 1 in 25, so it's hard to get. And kind of a cool cover that had a lot of buzz when it first came out. Back then, this 1 in 25 was going for 40 plus week of release. Now, there are no recent sales. Like, going back 3 months on eBay, there have been no sales of this book. People are asking in the $20 to $40 range. The only 9.8 currently on eBay is listed for $200. But again, nobody's buying it. I think the Meet the Scrolls was actually a pretty good series from everything I've heard. I didn't read it, but I think the problem is nobody read it, and there's just not a lot of demand for this book. Therefore, nobody's willing to pay even 20 bucks for this cover right now. Even though it's a kind of a cool cover, even though it's a pretty good series, just not happening. With that, let's move on to number 7 on the list. And Hulk is back. You could argue this is not Immortal Hulk related, though. This is more, well, I think this was a little bit Hulk related, a little bit in-game related, Immortal Hulk related, a little bit in-game related. But this is Incredible Hulk number 347. So all the Immortal Hulk buzz. There was some buzz about, you know, what version of Hulk we were going to see in Endgame. And I think there was some buzz about Mr. Fix-It showing up in Immortal Hulk. And this is the first Mr. Fix-It. So this book jumped from basically a $2 to $3 book to 25 plus. And with 9.8 hitting 225. Now, even though Immortal Hulk's still going on, the movie's come and gone. There was no Mr. Fix-It in the movies. It was Professor Hulk. And I don't know that Mr. Fix-It's actually played a role in the Immortal Hulk series. But now this book is back down to a $5 to $10 book. 9.8s have been slowly dropping back down. The most recent one only went for 120. Before that was like 140. Before that it was like 150, and it's been in that range. So from that kind of high around a little over 200, it's dropping back down toward $100 for 9.8. Current asking prices for this is still in the $10 to $20 range. There were no 9.8s currently listed. There was a 9.6 listed, and it was listed for $25. So if I'm reading that correctly, yeah, it looks like, unless I wrote that down wrong. I'm trying to determine if that's a 7 or a 2, but probably $75 is probably what that should be. Can't read my own handwriting, not good. But, so that is Incredible Hulk number 347, the first Mr. Fix-It. It has not managed to maintain much of the momentum it had back in the spring. At number 6, more Hulk, Incredible Hulk Volume 2, number 12, and this is the first Devil Hulk. And I know this had to do with the Immortal Hulk series and buzz around it. And this jumped from a $2 to $3 book to a $25 to $30 book, almost exactly like Mr. Fix-It in 347. And just like that other book, it's back down to a $5 book. There really hasn't been a sale. Like, people are still asking 10 to 15, but there's been no sales since like mid-August. And the most recent 9.8 was also in mid-August, and it went for 45. So this book is just not maintaining any momentum, despite the Immortal Hulk series. These kind of various versions of the Hulk that we've seen over the years, Professor Hulk, Mr. Fix-It, the first Devil Hulk, really haven't these first appearances really have never maintained a lot of value. They occasionally spike and that kind of stuff. It does make you wonder about ultimately what the long-term value on Immortal Hulk is. We shall see. This has been a really good run, so maybe it'll break that pattern. But this is Incredible Hulk number 12, the first Devil Hulk, and it has definitely dropped back down to a $5 book. With that, we will move into the top 5, and at number 5 is Spider-Woman number 3, the Forbes 1 in 25 variant. And this is just, CBSI commented that there was a lot of spec going on with Spider-Woman, people trying to decide which were going to be the hot books, which were going to be the hot covers to grab, with her most likely going to be in some sort of Spider-Verse movie coming up. So there was just a lot of people going after different Spider-Woman books. This one was one that had really gained a lot of momentum, and it was a bit of a ghost. It had jumped from a $15 book to a $75 book. Well, it may have been a bit of a ghost back then, but there's quite a few of them out there. I think people found them. I remember they had them and actually tried to move them. There was currently 8 listed on eBay, which is not a ton, but several. Right now, raws are back down to going for $10 to $15 is what they're selling for, although they're listed anywhere from $20 to $70, and you know how that goes with eBay. But the lowest ones are listed around $20. There's only been one 9.8 sale this year, and it went for $350 in July, which seems like a lot, seeing as the previous high for that book from 2018 was $90. Yeah, so the previous high was $90 in 2018, and the 9.8 this year went for $350. And of course, that's what the 9.8s are currently listed for on eBay, is $350. I'm not sure why anyone would pay $350 for this particular book, but they did. It is a cool cover, but it's really not that hard to find if you really want it. And that is Spider-Woman number 3, the 1 in 25 variant. At number 4 on our list is Dark Red number 1, the Strowman 1 in 10 variant. And this was a series that had a lot of buzz coming out of the gate. There was a lot of rumors about how great this was going to be and everything else. And as a result, this 1 in 10 jumped to $40 week of release. Everybody was trying to jump on this Dark Red train. And now this is a $10 to $15 book. Really hasn't been any maintenance of that Dark Red momentum. The book does not appear to have lived up to the hype, at least from everything I've heard. So now, basically, it's a $10 to $15 book with the most recent 9.8, or only 9.8 sale I could find, excuse me, going for $37. So, $10 for the book, plus slabbing, sell for $37, you didn't get your money back. So, currently, the books are mostly listed for $15 plus, and there are no slabs listed, so at least it doesn't appear like a lot of people tried to slab these and turn them. But, yeah, Dark Red, not a series that's been able to keep up the buzz that was around it when it first came out. At number 3 on our list is Untamed, A Sinner's Prayer, number 1. And this is Valiant movie spec again. And this is kind of a low print book. There was some movie spec about it. And it jumped from $15 to up to $40. This book is still going for the $40 to $60 range, although there have been no sales since the beginning of July. And that probably has to do with the fact that people are asking $100 plus for this book. So there were some sales. It was going May and June and early July. There was a few that sold for $40 to $60. Even one that went for $100. And as a result, now everything is listed for $100 plus, all the way up to somebody has it listed for $350 for a raw copy. People are asking. There's only 198 listed, and it was signed, and they were asking $900 for that. It was interesting to note that before this book hit the list, or that little bit of rumors and stuff about spec news and stuff, 9.8s were going for around $150 on this book. Afterward, there were a couple of sales on a 9.8, and they went for $375 to $425. So it jumped from a $150 book to a $400 book. But as I said, there's been no sales on anything since the beginning of July. Like July 2nd, I think, is the last sale of a raw or a slab. So it's hard to say what the current value of this. It is not what they're asking, which is $100 for raw copies, all the way up to $350. I think they were asking like $300 for a 9.6. Yeah, that's just not going to happen. With that, we will move on to number 2 on the list, and that is Venom Sinner Takes All, number 3, and this is the first Bride of Venom. And I think there was spec on this just with the current Venom story that this character might appear either in the upcoming Venom 2 movie, or that it was going to be, she was going to make have a role to play in the current Venom storyline by Donny Cates. And this book was flying off the shelves, is the way CBS described it. And it jumped all the way up to $75 to $100 for raw copies. Now raw copies are going for $25 to $50 range, so it has cooled off quite a bit. Generally, people are asking about $40 plus for this one, though, but you can definitely get it for less than that if you're patient. 9.8s are going for $200 to $250, which is pretty good, and people are asking $250 plus, so not a surprise. They're asking on the high end of what people are willing to pay for it. So this is one that can be had. It's definitely cooled some since the spring, but still a pretty decent book, and still relatively attainable if you are a big Venom fan and want this character's first appearance. And finally, this week we have Spawn number 240, which is just another one of these low print Spawns with kind of a cool cover. And basically, in 2 weeks, it went from back in March, it went from a $50 book to a $125 to $150 book. Now it's back down basically to a $50 to $100 book. So it's going for a little over 50 most of the time, more in that 60, 70 range, but occasionally for 50, occasionally for more. But generally it's down there. But people are asking, almost all the asking prices are 150 plus. So there haven't been a ton of sales, just because people aren't willing to pay what people are asking for it. So there's actually only been, and as far as 9/8s, they're kind of hard to come by. There's only been 2 sales in 2019 of a 9/8. One went for $160, one went for $170. Currently, they're asking $275 for a 9/8 or more on eBay. So again, another book where, you know, people are trying to get what they can get. There's low print spawns. They're a little bit tough to come by, but there was several of them listed, so it's not that hard to come by. A little patience, and you can get a raw copy down around $50. So with that, that is this week's list. Had several covers. We had a little indie hype with Dark Red that didn't pan out. We had some more Immortal Hulk spec, a little Spider-Woman spec. But for the most part, not a ton of value in this week's list, I don't think. Not a lot of sustained value. I mean, if you consider Spawn 240 sustained value just because it's a low print, maybe. And I think a lot of these low print spawns that were spiking really had to do with the hype of the run up to 300. So I'm not sure how much they've already kind of started calming down. I'm not sure how much long term there really is in those. I mean, I don't think there'll ever be like a $5 book, but I don't think it's going to like have a lot of increases from here. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next week.